exists on the right.
States and blue states. She was talking about how she was going to govern for all Americans, and then she gave you the background on Tim Walz. And apparently, according to Kamala Harris, the relevant stuff about Tim Walz is not that he presided over the burning down of Minneapolis, and in his own words,
which was again primarily done by a Trump supporter,
abjectly failed to stop that from happening. It's not that he has praised socialism. It's not that he's blown out the budget to the tune of a 40% increase in the last year. It's not.
Also, if your line is like, well, that happened under Tim Walz, it also happened under Donald Trump. The George Floyd protests, the Minneapolis arson, that happened under Trump. I mean, what are you running on?
Not that he has presided over extraordinary fraud in the state of Minnesota. Of course, you wouldn't expect her to say any of those things. It's that if you go back far enough, he was a high school football coach. And don't you know, he's a teacher and a high school football. He's basically Mr. Feeney, but more athletic. He's like Ed Asner, avuncular, moderate, just one of the boys. You know, a guy who can crack a beer and can shoot a rifle, but is also really, really in favor of gun control and transing the kids. That's basically the pitch.
Extremely mad at how normal he comes across, by the way.
Favor of Tim Walz. So she does this routine. These rallies are incredibly well choreographed. I will say that. They are very well choreographed. She calls for a chant, and a chant goes up. First Democratic rally I've seen for a while where people start actually cheering USA. And why are they cheering USA? Because she says, what an amazing country this is. What an incredible country where a person like me, middle-class person, or Tim Walz, middle-class person, can become the president and vice president of the United States. Now, I agree with that. But she doesn't agree with that. She believes that America is systemically racist. So does Tim Walz.
It's remarkable how well the rally must have gone that even somebody like Ben Shapiro has to be like, okay, the rally looks like it went really well, but also, you know, he has to contradict it from the outside with this like, okay, but if you think about it a little more, you can believe that America is systematically racist and also think that this is a land of opportunity. America is, relative to a lot of other places, objectively a land of opportunity. It's very easy to thread that needle. It's not difficult at all. America has bad elements, but America has good elements. It's not hard. But it's always going to be difficult to the fascist, because to the fascist, education about one's country is meant to be the tool of indoctrination. You don't learn about America to learn about America. You learn about America to worship it, to die for the state. That's it. You know, that's the reason why Republicans are so opposed to you learning about the history of civil rights, slavery, the treatment of LGBTQ people. You know, they don't want you to learn about American history. They don't like it when you talk about the founding fathers being slave owners because that would mean that America's hypocritical and bad in some respects. Well, yes, it is. They don't want you knowing that because they don't want you to critically engage with that information. They don't want you to actually learn about the country. Now, in my opinion, again, I'm not really a big nation state guy, but in my opinion, if you were to love a person, you love them faults and all, right? What is love of another person if not knowing their faults and failures and loving them in spite of that? As opposed to the alternative, I suppose, which is to delude yourself and pretend that none of those faults exist. If you really do love America, and again, this is not a hill I'm dying on, not a huge America, love it or don't kind of guy, I really don't care. But if you did love America, you would love it warts and all, and you would be familiar with the history, and you would know about it, and you would care about improving it. But Republicans don't want it improved. They think criticism of America, and criticism must always precede improvement, because otherwise, what are you improving on? Would imply that America isn't already perfect. Of course, Republicans do criticize America, but never in a fundamental way. And when they offer those criticisms, it's always in the sense of like, there are brown people here, you know? When Trump criticizes America, it's always in the capacity of, well, the Democrats have let in too many illegals. Or Kamala Blah and Sleepy Joe Biden have ruined America by inventing inflation. They hit the big inflation button on the Oval Office desk. It can only ever be like, this criticism of America is a tool that I will use to enact my agenda. It can never just be part of an educational or instructive exercise in learning about one's country. They can't know it. They don't care for it.
Tim Walz said back in 2020 that he believes that those riots were a reflection of the great evil that America represented.
That is the statement of one who can love America. I genuinely mean that. If you are so delusional that you will pretend that the response to George Floyd's murder was not indicative of like severe underlying racial tension, then you don't actually care for this country or want to know anything about it. You just want the people with darker skin than you to be quiet.
And yet here they are doing the unity routine. And that's what is so false about all of this, is this idea that these folks are real reminders of what brings us together, that what they are really interested in more than anything else is governing for all Americans. They are radically to the left. This is why the Trump campaign has a moral obligation to remind the American people.
The radical communism of free school lunches for all children, and at the rally today, free water for all people. That would get in the way of Nestle's ability to buy up water and land rights in Africa that they can later use in the water wars, you know? It's anti-freedom. It's communism. It really is crazy how, and by the way, like, there are left-leaning people in American government. There are no communists. There are no people who are sincerely proposing a model of like decommodification and worker control of the means of production or the abolition of a state in general. These things don't exist in the, they're not part of the discourse, you know? But it is kind of crazy how Republicans keep trying to convince their constituency that socialism is when things are good. Look at the radical socialism of these people, feeding the sick and hungry, you know, like Jesus Christ would.
That these people are radically to the left. Okay, so that's all the intro to Tim Walz. Then Tim Walz gets up, and he's quite good. I mean, let's just be frank about this. Tim Walz gives a speech, and the speech is avuncular, and it's charming. He's smiling the whole time. He doesn't look uncomfortable smiling.
He's got a crush.
He attacks J.D. Vance. He attacks Donald Trump, of course. The lowest point of the speech is his attempt to signal to his base that he'll take the gloves off with J.D. Vance. He makes some sort of dumb joke about J.D. Vance getting up off the couch, which is...
It's true. That's the worst part of the speech, which is why everyone cheered and laughed, including Kamala Harris right behind him. And then everyone on social media also cheered and laughed, and everyone's having a great time. And the right is still having such a meltdown over this that they're desperately trying to match the energy by throwing out like anything and seeing what sticks. Tampon Tim. Tim horses. That's my line. Don't steal. Should have gotten that copyrighted. You see that on social media right now? There's a bunch of right-wingers, and they're like, Tim Walz eats poop. r/ask a liberal. Did Tim Walz have to get his stomach pumped from swallowing horse semen? That trending on Reddit. Democrats are freaks. From Laura Loomer, the person whose face looked like it's a mask on another person's face. I've said this before, but this doesn't work because Republicans saying, oh, so we're just gonna like throw smears at JD Vance. Okay, the gloves are off. We Republican pundits are now ready to lie about the opposition. Are you ready? Oh, the gloves truly are off. You've all been such adherents to factual reality up until this point, you know? It's not like we didn't just go through a massive one-day-long right-wing freak show, hysteria over a female boxer in the Olympics being male based on nothing. Oh, take a look. This female boxer from Algeria, center of woke, is actually a biological male, as evidenced by literally nothing. Look at her face. Isn't it kind of man? I know her job is getting punched in the face, which I think might, make a rustic looking individual out of any of us. But we're rolling with this anyway. You ask a right winger, they say sex is based on biology. And then all of a sudden, the moment it's convenient, it's entirely based on appearance and vibes. Butch lesbians, congratulations, you're male, which I guess means, femme kind of androgynous trans girls, you're in. Congratulations, biologically female, the gates are open. It's just a vibe thing, Anyway, it's pathetic. They're desperately trying to force the meme, and it's not going to work. J.D. Vance is a freak. It makes sense to imagine him couch. Tim Walz is like John America, the most normal guy. The turnaround doesn't make sense. It's like they don't even know what freaks they are. I mean, again, like, it's fitting that Laura Loomer would be the one rebroadcasting that, because Laura Loomer herself looks like an alien. God almighty, every time I Google her, I forget how bad it is. I'm the person who will act as the the bulwark. I will be the retort to the accusation that the right wing is weird. Holy shit, that's a real face. It is a real face, yeah. A lot of Republican women end up looking like this because, and I'm not saying you should sympathize with them because they're monsters, but behind the scenes, they're subject to a lot of sexism because Republicans hate women, so they're heavily encouraged to keep getting plastic surgery, Also, hate does age you. Yeah, here's her at the Laura Loomer for Congress event in Florida with Milo Yiannopoulos, the pedophile Nazi, who was literally praised the rape of 14-year-old boys. Or was it 12?